Chair and members of the commission, we are now live.
Good evening. Welcome to the March 8th, 2023 Historic Preservation Meeting. My name is Karen Burdett, and I am the Vice Chair of the HPC, and I will be acting as Chair this evening. To satisfy our legal requirements, I need to enter the following statement into the record. The commissioners and staff of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission are appointed by the county executive with the confirmation of the county council and are qualified to serve according to the Chapter 24A, Section 24A-4B of the Montgomery County Code. Resumes of the commissioners are on file at the Historic Preservation Office and are hereby made part of the record by reference of all public hearings heard tonight. As is our custom, I would like our commissioners and staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Zara Nasser.
Jeffrey Haynes.
Julie Pelletier.
Commissioner Doman.
Cristina Arado.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff.
John Lieberts, Historic Preservation Staff.
Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you very much.
And Michael Kine, Historic Preservation Staff, is joining remotely.
Thank you. We will start this evening with our historic area work permits. And if anybody wants to testify tonight on any of these issues, please fill out the form on the table and hand it back to the staff, please. I'm going to open the record now on the historic area work permits. Have the historic area work permits been duly advertised?
Yes, Madam Chair, the permits were advertised in the February 22nd issue of the Washington Times.
Thank you. All right, we are going to work with the expedited hops first. These are the ones that have no opposition to them and we feel can be duly voted through. If there is anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to cases, 1A at 512 Albany Avenue, Tacoma Park, 1B at 36 Philadelphia Avenue, Tacoma Park, 1D at 7212 Cedar Avenue, Tacoma Park, and 1E at 2102 Salisbury Road, Silver Spring.
Madam Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with staff reports based upon the record before us, in consideration of the recommendations of local advisory panels and including the conditions recommended by staff.
Do I hear a second?
Hang on.
I'm sorry.
Hop number 1020430 at 512 Albany Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 1020827 at 36 Philadelphia Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 997563 revision at 7212 Cedar Avenue, Tacoma Park. And hop number 1021795 at 2102 Salisbury Road, Silver Spring.
Do I hear a second?
This is Commissioner Arado, I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. These hops that have been listed have been approved by the Historic Preservation Commission and can move forward, and the people who have brought them forward can speak to the staff about moving forward at this point. We will now hear one hop this evening, and it is item 1C at 7300 Holly Avenue, Tacoma Park. And we have the two agents speaking tonight, Mr. Cohen and Mr. Sayag. If you'd like to come forward. And if you'll please make sure your mic is on and then identify yourself, your address, and your relationship to this case, please. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we do have a staff presentation.
Oh, I am
just briefly
sorry.
before the applicant speaks. That's quite all right.
Stay there, and the staff will give their report. Thank you.
So this is the staff report for the historic area work permit at 7300 Holly Avenue in Tacoma Park. This is HOP 1016595. The house was constructed circa 1918. It is designated as an outstanding resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District and is to be reviewed under Chapter 24A, the Tacoma Park Design Guidelines, and the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. The proposal is to construct a ground floor addition off of the left elevation, and the HPC reviewed a preliminary consultation at the January 25th Historic Preservation Commission meeting and was very supportive in their comments. So again, just to familiarize yourself with the house, it sits high above the street. The addition is proposed for the left side here. We'll see in the plans shortly. Along here, there is a large tree to the rear that they're trying to avoid any impact on, which is why the HPC supported building off of the side. Also, there were some interior floor plan issues that made a left projecting addition more functional for the applicant's use. So historically, the house's rear wall was along here where the cursor is. So the proposal is to build the left projecting addition off of a circa 1980s addition. A couple of the commissioners were supportive of a bay window to sort of soften the front edge of the addition. The plan submitted did show, the original plan submitted did show a rear bay window, but that was eliminated. Again, the elevation showing the bay window, hipped roof. This is all very familiar from the preliminary consultation. So the primary issue this evening is staff's recommended condition, which is that the applicant, the proposed asphalt shingles not be installed and that metal shingles matching the appearance of the existing roof configuration be approved instead. What you see here is a file photo from our slide library taken sometime before 2008. This has the original metal roof shingle. In 2008, a previous owner applied for and received approval for Barrage Victorian shingles as an in-kind replacement to the metal shingle roof. The supervisor approved that without bringing it to the HPC as supported in Chapter 24A6, and those exact shingles are still manufactured to this day. So staff finds that as an outstanding resource, it's permissible to make sympathetic alterations, changes, and additions. Again, just to reiterate, the HPC supported the size, scale, massing, and placement of the proposed addition at the January 25th, 2023 preliminary consultation. Staff finds that the added front bay is in keeping with the recommendations voiced by several of the commissioners at the preliminary consultation. Staff finds that the materials proposed are appropriate for the addition, for additions and infill construction, both to outstanding and contributing resources in the Tacoma Park Historic District, with one exception. Staff finds that both asphalt shingles and standing seam metals are inconsistent with the historically appropriate metal shingles, which would match the dimensions and appearance of the historic roof. Reading from the guidelines for outstanding resource, it states that plans for alterations should be compatible with the resource's original design. Additions specifically should be sympathetic to existing architectural character, including massing, height, setbacks, and materials. And staff finds that the higher visibility of the side projecting addition warrants replicating the existing roof material exactly, which can be accomplished using contemporary materials. So staff recommends that the HPC approve the HOP under 24A8B2 and 5 and the Tacoma Park Historic District Design Guidelines, with the added condition in the staff report that the addition's roof needed to match the metal shingles of the existing house. And I will answer any questions at this time.
Do any commissioners have questions for staff? Commissioner Pelletier.
Thanks. Does that rule apply to an addition to a non-historic addition, as far as the matching the materials of the original house?
So that guideline is specific to outstanding resources.
Okay.
So you know, in the Tacoma Park District, they give resources either outstanding, contributing, or non-contributing. While most of the focus on outstanding resources and applying the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation, there are several other bullet points, including this one. So that's where staff pulled that is directly out of the guidance for outstanding resources, which is how this is categorized.
Okay, thanks.
And I just want to add, Commissioners, the applicant did submit some testimony that was distributed in the board books, which you've all should have had the opportunity to review prior to the hearing.
Any other questions for staff? If not, we'll move on to our speakers, and we have, again, two agents, and also the owner is here tonight, Mr. Patrick Roberts. So whichever one of you wants to go first and say whatever you like, or you can just, we can ask you questions. So,
Press the button so it turns
and
on.
identify
There you
yourself.
go.
Thank you kindly. Yeah, so I'll just quickly talk about the roof, and then I'm
Sir,
quite,
just identify yourself for
Oh,
the record.
of
Thank
course,
you.
sorry. Patrick Roberts, owner of the house.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I just want to discuss the roof appearance and make sure that we're all on the same page. I think that based on the report that we got back, I think we're all interested in the same kind of outcome, and I just want to make sure we all know how to get there. So the idea of the asphalt shingles not being appropriate makes complete sense, and we don't want to try to get that put on the addition. However, what we submitted on Monday was a picture of the rear of the house that shows the roof that was put on in the addition when the addition was built in the 1980s. So you can see from that roof that it's not exactly the same kind of tiles that were put on for the rest of the roof, but the steel sheets that are placed on there were painted and match the color of the rest of the roof very closely. Considering the fact that the roof is 80 feet back from the road, we feel that the pattern or design of the roof itself is less important than the color of the roof itself. And we understand that the tiles that are on the rest of the roof are still manufactured, but our concern is that since that roof is 15 years old at this point, that if we put new shingles on that were the exact same brand and color, we might still have a real kind of color clash because it will take time for that patina to develop and for the roof to actually match the existing older roof. So our request was to use a roof that is similar to the addition in the back that we can control the color of. The pattern won't match as much, but we'll get a closer color match, which we think is more important. The thing that we really want to avoid as owners is kind of a color clash where we have two very distinctly different reds that obviously don't match. And if one is 15 years old and one is, new as of this spring, we could potentially be chasing that color difference for the life of the roof. So that's our main priority. Getting rid of the asphalt roof is completely understandable and something we're more than willing to do. And I'll take questions.
Any questions? Yes, Commissioner Doman.
Yes, this is Commissioner Dolman. Is in this picture that's in front of us, which shows the roof over the back addition, is that a painted roof?
Yes, I believe so. It's we took a look at it together, and as far as we can tell, it's steel sheets that have been painted.
The steel sheets has been painted, right? Okay, so what you're proposing then for the new addition that goes on there would also be similar and also be painted, is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that we would be able to paint it will give us more color control, making the color match easier.
Thank you.
Commissioner Haynes?
Thank you. In constructing this addition, are you going to have to replace the existing sheet metal? What's the age of the current sheet metal, and how do you tie the new and old together? Or
We
are
would
you
not be replacing it, but we would be tying it together.
So you have a seam where the old and the new meet, you have to tie it together.
Sure. My name is Israel Sayag from USA Services, LLC. I'm the contractor. As you know, the new roof would pretty much die into that existing one, and we would have to add that kind of flashing, which would have to remove part of that roof to add a new flashing to it. So if we would have a new roof going into that roof, then it will be really noticeable in terms of different colors.
So you feel you can control the color of the new roof? You know, even this metal roof is aged and it's got moss growing on it. So how do you control the color to get a match next, you know, new and old match?
I can match the exact color, creating like a fade color of taking a sample from that and color with a special paint for metal roof. Making sure it's going to be consistent and not having like adding like different kind of colors right now to the existing one.
You'll also see in the photograph that we shared on Monday, you'll also see the side of the roof kind of to the right along the fence where we took the picture. There's not moss on that, and you get a better view of the color. You can see that there is a little bit of a color difference between the tile roof and the metal sheet roof, but they're pretty close to one another.
Any more questions?
This is Commissioner Nasser. The roof that's 15 years old, what's the life expectancy on that roof? When do you think that needs to be replaced? Do you have any idea?
In general, these type of roofs last probably around 35, 40 years if you give like a good treatment to it, which, you know, in general you need to do some repairs and
So it doesn't need to be replaced anytime soon?
not right now. We don't
All
have
right.
like any issue inside of like any leak or anything right now.
Thank you.
Any more questions? If there are no more questions, then we can begin our deliberations. Would somebody like to start? Please. Commissioner Haynes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence. You make a point that to do the metal shingles, you're replacing the entire back roof, existing and new, and which would be adjacent to the main house shingle roof, and there would potentially be color differential for a number of years. I am a little concerned about how you tie the seam that you'll have to create to join a metal, the old and new metal roof together, but I suppose that's a consideration kind of beyond our purview. I think in general, doing just a sheet metal roof that's a good color match would be acceptable, given the distance from the street, the potential for the color mismatch of a new metal shingle. I think, as I said, I think I could support that option.
Commissioner Radu.
I agree with Commissioner Haynes. I will just want to add that, in fact, I think it's maybe even better than having the original tile, matched, because it will not create a false sense of like which one is the historic part and which one is the addition. So I think just having a little differentiation, but not asphalt shingles. I mean, another type of metal panel, I think will help.
Commissioner Doman.
Are we ready to move ahead?
If there are, I'm trying to decide if I want to make a comment. I'll make a brief comment, or I should have asked this. Did you actually take a current shingle of the red and compare it to the existing roof? like a new shingle, red shingle, and compare it and see what the color difference was, Gene?
We just got the color shingle, the new samples of new shingles today FedEx to us. So we will be able to compare them tomorrow.
That makes things a little different. Because our assumption, or at least my assumption, was that you had compared them and there was a whitening or a dusting of, a bleaching of the color. And the manufacture of these materials have gotten much, much better in the last 10, 15 years. You just don't get a fading like you used to get, which was always very pronounced. Supervisor Ballo, your a little advice here. Seems to me that we can either all agree that they can do the sheet metal and paint it whatever color they want, and it's more of a material. It's more of a material issue and not a color issue at that point. Or they can prove that the new red isn't matching the old red, but that would require a continuance?
So you have the recommendation of, from the staff in the staff report. So you can make different findings on compatibility. Again, they're, just basing them on your interpretation of the criteria in the design guidelines and the criteria for approving the hop. If you would like to state, for example, that you find a certain material to be compatible and you would like to offer a different condition that, leaving the final review of compatibility on the material aspect up to the staff, you can condition it that way. Just be really specific about what it is that you want us to check. Is that the answer to the question?
I think yes, I think so. I'm just getting my head around this.
If you're asking, the commission may also, if you feel you do not have enough information about this material and you would like to defer it to the next available hearing to have an opportunity to inspect a physical example of the sample, then that is also within your purview if you feel you don't have enough information to make a different recommendation than what the staff has proposed. And you can ask the applicant for specific information, a material sample that would be submitted to you, and you can defer the case to the next available hearing date, if that is also if that's also a date that works for the applicant.
Could the commission leave it up to staff to verify the shingle color?
Certainly, if you'd like to condition
And
that.
then if it's adequate, if it's a close enough match to the existing, then they need to do what the original condition was. And if there is a color differential that's obvious from the street,
Again, you
this
should.
is going too far, isn't it?
That
Oh.
you might want to try with
Yeah,
a
let's-
motion and
let's
then
try
see
a
where we
motion.
end up.
Okay.
I'd like to propose a motion that the HPC approve this hop. Let me see if I can formulate this right. With the condition from the staff that, what I want to say is the owner should provide the staff with the color selections of the shingles they have received. Staff can review the colors of the shingles. If they match the existing roof, the condition stands. If they don't match, the owner can do the sheet metal and paint it, submit the paint color to staff for approval. Does that make any sense?
Can,
No?
I'd like to simplify. I move that the commission continue this HOP number 1016595 and request the applicant to invite the staff out to the property with the sample in hand so they can see on site the sample against the original shingles and evaluate the color match.
May I speak?
Sure,
Okay.
yeah.
We are extremely eager to get this construction started. We are looking at about a 3-month-long time period from when we get a permit to when the construction is going to be finished. We purchased this house in September and have been carrying 2 mortgages since then. If I understand the desire to see the shingles on site and make sure that the colors match, that makes sense to me, but if that means delaying this another 2 months until we can get into the next hearing, that is pretty problematic for us. Would there be a way for us to get a permit that approves construction of the foundation and the walls and everything but the roof while we wait on this particular color match detail?
So this is Rebecca Ballo for the record. You can, if the issue is just with the roof, you know, with the staff's condition, we can, well, sorry, I was going to say something about
This
timing, but
Commissioner
now I don't
Haynes,
think will work.
if you have the sample in hand now, can the staff go out there between now and the next hearing, which is in 2 weeks, and look at it and make a recommendation and put this back on the agenda in 2 weeks?
Or can we approve the HOP with the condition that the sample be reviewed by staff, and the condition is that if staff approves the sample as matched, then the owner has to go with the shingles, and if there is a color differential, then the staff can deal with the item as a staff.
So the only issue that I would see enforcing that is that you haven't provided staff with any guardrails on what is deemed an appropriate alternative. Because in this staff report, we've made a reasoned recommendation that has a specific material for it, and then if not that, then what? I mean, you could entirely delegate staff to determine what the roof should be, but in the staff report, staff's already come to a conclusion. So you should be explicit about what an appropriate alternative would be that could then be enforced in, stamping approved plans that then go to the Department of Permitting Services for construction.
If I may, again, this is just a point of order. Commissioner Pelletier made a motion. We did not call for a second. So I think you should call for a second, see if she gets a second. And if not, the motion will fail, and I think you should keep making motions to work this out.
Can we have discussion on the motion?
Well, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Can we have the motion, the original motion, repeated for our benefit?
Sure. Yes, that would be helpful. Commissioner Pelletier, do you want to take a stab at it?
Yes, I will try again. Let's see, this is 1C, correct?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Commissioner Pelletier. I'm going to attempt to simplify my motion. I move that the HPC approve this HOP with the condition recommended by staff, with an additional condition that the staff review the color samples of shingles that are in the possession of the owner, if the shingle color matches, then the owner, then we move forward with the condition recommended by staff. If the shingle does not match, then we pursue the recommendation of the owner that the sheet metal roof be constructed and painted to match. And the color chosen to match the existing roof should be approved by staff.
Okay.
That probably wasn't any more simple than my
No,
last
it wasn't.
one.
But you have made a motion, and do I hear a second on Commissioner Pelletier's motion? Anybody? Second? I do not hear a second, and the motion fails. All right, let's start over.
Well, first of all, I'd like, as a discussion topic, okay, I support the staff's findings. I think the owner has come back with a recommendation that they could use metal roofing, which to me seems perfectly appropriate because there's already metal roofing on the back. And I think the homeowner is interested in matching colors. And I would go ahead with the recommendation that's put forth by staff that we approve this hop with the one condition, and I would just say the condition is that either shingles or sheet metal, whatever you have on the back, is acceptable. And I guess the final thing, maybe staff could advise one or the other, but I think either one's appropriate. I do lean toward this, and the motion, okay? I lean towards the flat roof because I think it differentiates the construction. The house itself is shingled, and as Commissioner Radu said, there's some advantage to having a differentiation of construction times, and I think a flat roof will look perfectly fine on this particular residence. Thank you.
So, did you make a motion?
I thought I did.
Okay, you made a motion.
No, I thought he was discussing. I thought we were just.
Yeah, I thought
Okay,
it was
can I start
discussion.
over? Then I make a motion that we approve hop number 1016595 at 7300 Holly Avenue, based upon staff's recommendation with the one condition that the roof be either, well, staff recommendation was shingles and/or sheet metal appropriately painted to match the color of the house. That's it.
Okay. I know. Okay, is there a second to this motion? There is no second. The motion fails. Okay. Let's step back a minute. The staff recommendation calls for us to approve this with one condition, and their condition is to use the shingles. No color reference at all, just use the shingles, right? If we want to approve this hop, but we don't want it to be specific to the shingles, we have to remove the staff condition and add a new one, correct?
This is Rebecca Ballo. I'm not quite,
If
if you just approve the hop, then you are approving the hop with the
With
asphalt
actually-
roof. Right, which is something that.
No, the metal roof.
the metal,
well,
no, the shingles.
No, I'm sorry. If you strike the staff condition and you just straight approve the hop, then you are approving the permit with the asphalt shingles, which is something that neither the owner nor the staff recommend. But that is certainly,
No, that's, okay, that,
Okay.
I thought I was getting an easy way out of this, but obviously not, no. Okay, so,
you
we want to
can,
include the condition,
if you
That-
want a
that-
roof other than asphalt,
we have to
then
approve the condition.
you have to
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
add a condition.
Commissioner Haynes is going to try it this time, okay.
I make a motion that we approve hop number 1016595 based on the staff's recommendation with the condition that the staff makes a site visit observes the sample and for color match, and if they feel that it is a good match, then we proceed with the metal shingle roof.
Yes.
And if not, there needs to be a second part of that.
Yeah.
If it's not a color match, then the case comes back to the HBC for further discussion and review.
The color, the only thing that needs to come back is the roof.
Only the roof. We're talking only the roof here.
Can it go before staff?
Well, then we're saying we're leaving up to staff to approve
Something else.
something else
If you find, if you find the sheet metal is acceptable contingent on a color match, then the condition can just direct the staff, for example, if we do not find what they have provided to be compatible, you can direct the staff to keep working with the applicant to find a sheet metal example that is compatible and delegate authority for that final verification to the staff.
Can he amend his motion?
I mean, I think it's pretty, so the motion was the staff, with the condition that the staff undertake a site visit, review with the owner's provided sample for a color match. If staff determines that it matches, then the hop is approved. If staff determines it is not a compatible match, then staff is authorized to continue to work with the owner to find an acceptable color match for the approved sheet metal.
Did he say that?
You can adopt what I just, if you, I mean, that is pretty much what you had.
That's pretty much what it is. I mean, I accept your friendly amendment.
Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Commissioner Pelletier.
All in favor? Say
Aye.
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 This
I'm going to
motion-
abstain. This is Commissioner Rado.
What'd you
Oh,
do?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Radu abstains.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So can I get some clarity on what this looks like after all of that fun?
Okay, so the motion has been approved your hop has been approved with the shingles,
Metal shingles.
the metal shingles, and staff will review the samples you have in hand out in the field for a color match. If the color matches, you get to do the shingles. If the colors do not match, then staff will work with you to find a color match with the sheet metal.
Okay, and just to be clear on that, the staff would be working with us to match the color, but we would be able to choose the metal sheet that we want to use, and we would just be discussing the color. Is that correct?
If the
Right, no, I
shingles don't
fully
match.
understand that part, but if we've gotten to the point where the shingles don't match, we will be installing, we will decide what metal roof we want, and we will work with staff to confirm the color, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and all of that can happen while we are moving the permitting process forward and getting the permits in hand and doing the construction of the foundation and the walls and the whole rest of it.
Yes,
Is that correct?
you may submit a prepare your building permit application, work with Dan to get your stamped hop, which you will need to upload to E-Plans as part of your building permit. And yes, you can prepare the drawings and start your submissions for construction.
And staff will, if the colors don't match, and the staff is going to work with you to find a color match for the metal roofing, they'll probably be willing, if you need some help finding a sheet metal, they'll probably can help you with that.
And you can,
I'm less concerned about the material of the roof. I think we can handle that. That's easy.
Okay.
What I would, if we need to, the metal shingles themselves, for example, take 8 to 10 weeks to arrive after being ordered, right? So if we have a metal roof, a metal sheet roof that we're going to be installing, I want to make sure that we can get that process rolling and then just, again, work with staff on the color. Because the color, as far as I understand, if we're doing metal sheeting, would just be paint.
yes,
Yes.
Right.
yes.
Okay, are we done with this?
Well, you've made your
Yes.
Your motion
Okay.
seconded
Thank you.
and it's been
Thank you.
approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
And
for
I
your
will be in
patience.
touch with you tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Like I said, we just got a text saying that we have the sample, so we can move it forward immediately.
Yeah. And thank you for your patience
Yeah,
as we
thank you.
worked through this tonight. We just wanted to make sure you could get your hop and keep working towards the permit.
We very much appreciate that.
Yeah.
Not that we don't enjoy these, but
I'm
we
sure, yeah.
appreciate being able to move this forward. It makes a big difference.
Sometimes the process is painful.
Understood.
But thank you very much. Good luck. And we look forward to seeing your addition and how nice it's going to look. Thank you. All right. Now, we move on to preliminary, and it's preliminary 2B at 5 Montgomery Avenue, Tacoma Park. And does staff have a report?
Yes, good evening. This is the preliminary consultation for 2B at 5 Montgomery Avenue in Tacoma Park. That's the building you see in front of you. It was constructed in 1923 as a contributing resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District. Again, this is reviewed under Chapter 24A, the Tacoma Park Design Guidelines, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. The applicant proposes several changes to the existing building, including removing and replacing the existing siding and trim, construct an addition at the rear, replace the existing roof, and change the fenestration at the rear and side of the historic building. So this is the subject property, just to familiarize yourself again. We don't actually know when the siding was covered, but much of the trim was also removed when the current siding went on. And then from the rear. So the addition is actually not adding a whole lot of space. It's only adding 8 feet of depth to the house. There is a wraparound porch that will be constructed as part of that. However, much of this is inset from the historic wall planes and is set a significant distance from the right-of-way. I've provided the renderings in the elevation just to give you an idea of existing, which is in the upper left, and proposed in the lower right. You see both the addition, which is here, and then the proposed dormer. There's also basement egress stairs, which is less of staff's concern for this preliminary consultation. On the right side, which is, you see closer to the street, we have proposed skylights here and here, a window infill here, and a new bay window, in addition to the wraparound porch and rear addition and gable dormer. And the rear elevation, again, this matches the full width of the existing house, including a balcony on the 3rd floor. So staff finds that the house has been substantially modified over time, including modifications necessary for it to be used as an apartment. I found advertisements from the 1940s for renting it, and in the 1959 Sanborn map, it was also labeled as an apartment. The condition of the historic siding, if it's still extant, is unknown. Staff finds that the size and placement of the proposed addition will not overwhelm the character of the house or the surrounding district. In this instance, staff finds that a coplanar addition is likely acceptable because the rear section of the house is already inset by several feet and has been modified as per a comparison between the existing condition and both Sanborn maps. Staff finds the proposed rear porch with its compatible materials and design will not negatively impact the historic character of the house or the surrounding district. And staff finds that the proposed rear balcony will not be visible from the surrounding right-of-way and should be approved as a matter of course. Material specifications for the addition were not provided, and staff recommends that either wood or fiber cement walls and wood or aluminum-clad wood windows would be appropriate. So staff also finds that the proposed dormers will not have a significant impact on the character of the house because their visibility from the right-of-way will be relatively minimal. Replacing the asphalt shingle roof with a new asphalt shingle roof is acceptable and would be an in-kind replacement. The application materials also indicated that a metal roof was also a possibility. Without a material specification for the metal roof, as we just discussed, would need to be submitted before staff can make a recommendation. Staff finds that the proposed bay window is generally consistent with the design and character of the house. However, staff finds that additionally, staff finds that the fenestration alteration at the right elevation would not be visible from the right-of-way and would recommend that the HPC approve an appropriately detailed wood or aluminum-clad window. I did not point that out in the elevations, but we can go back to those changes if you'd like. Staff finds that the skylights proposed for the right-facing gable are appropriate. However, the skylights on the right slope of the front-facing gable, this has many different roof slopes and forms, contravene the design guidelines in Standard 2 and should be revised or eliminated from the scope of work. Staff does not support removing the second floor window. It's above the new bay window on the right elevation because its removal would alter the proportions on what is a highly visible elevation. So staff requests HPC feedback on several elements, including the appropriateness of a coplanar addition, the impact the proposed dormers would have on the character of the house and surrounding district, the appropriateness of the right side bay window, staff's recommendation for the skylights on the front of the roof, that's the front gable, staff's recommendation to retain the second story side window, and guidance on the evaluation and documentation necessary to remove and replace the existing siding. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Haynes?
On the Sanborn maps that you provided in the report, they look identical. Are they different other than the looks like maybe the shed was removed in the 1959, but it looks like the footprint is identical. Is that?
That's what Sanborn provided us when we bought those maps, so it appears that way, yes.
Oh, okay. And so the whole footprint is historic.
There have been some modifications to the house. I mean, you can see that on this image, they enclosed a portion of the porch here. The wraparound porch continued all the way to here, and then it terminated. And additionally, on the right side, the wall plane seems to continue back uninterrupted in the Sanborn maps, whereas now we have what is probably a 4 or 5 foot inset in the wall. So that seems to be a change. Based on my observations at a site visit and the information provided, I can't tell if there's a change in window details that would indicate that that was a later alteration or how that was impacted. It would be odd that the two Sanborn maps would show the same thing and they would both be wrong, but mistakes get made from time to time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
Yes, thank you. Do you know what the siding is right now? Is it a vinyl siding or aluminum?
It looks to be a asbestos fiber cement from potentially the 50s or 60s.
So most likely this is not original.
Oh,
what
it's
you said.
definitely not original.
And is there I guess we could talk to the homeowner, but do we know that there's siding underneath this?
Well, we don't. Typically, the HPC is required at the hop stage would require removal of some of the non-historic siding to identify and evaluate the condition of what's underneath. Rarely, when replacement siding was installed, did homeowners remove all of the historic siding unless it was either burned or rotted. So usually, non-historic siding does a very good job of encapsulating the historic wood and preserves it to a large degree. So, whether or not a simple single reveal panel would be acceptable to the HPC, and if there's an identified location where they'd like to see that at a hop is one of the conditions that we present to you, and we can go forward from there, and that's also something that staff can examine on site before we come back with a hop and evaluate it.
Yeah, it seems, I guess the recommendation is to replace the siding?
Well, that's.
I mean,
the applicant's proposing to remove and replace this existing siding.
Does the existing siding mean the shingles?
Well, I mean, if
What?
if you have a specific question for the applicant,
Yeah, I know.
they will have an opportunity to do that shortly.
Sure. Now, I have a question about the elevation drawings. Is the addition actually taller than the gable on the front of the house? If I look at this correctly, it looks like the ridge of the new gable is actually higher than the ridge of the existing front gable. Is that true?
Well, no, it only continues the existing ridge height. So
It looks
this-
higher for some reason.
This portion of the
Yeah,
gable.
that's what I'm talking about.
Is taller than this front gable. Also, if you look at the rear, you see that this gable is centered. And I didn't bring the front elevations because there's no visible change. But you can see that this front gable is offset. So, yes, you can't see the house in elevation, but yes, this roof, the way it's drawn, is taller. This rear gable is taller than the front gable. But in the addition,
That's existing, isn't it?
It's existing.
That's existing.
And
Right
then
now
in the
it's taller.
addition, these 8 additional feet are just continue that ridge line.
Okay, I understand. I thought the whole thing was being raised, but it is currently higher right now.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Pelletier.
Thank you. As far as the original siding goes, I only asked this because I just went through this exercise at my house. And you can't really tell by pulling off a few feet of the asbestos the condition of the whole house. I mean, in the case of my house, some of it was in awesome shape, and then some of it was just a mess. And so how do you evaluate that, like, in the process?
Well, so, I mean, the applicant is proposing to install new siding over it. So in some instances, identifying what the condition of the historic siding would be could guide the HPC's decision-making process and what would be an appropriate replacement siding. Because the drawings don't provide us with a specific reveal or profile. That may allow for that. Additionally, if we understand the material and configuration of the historic siding and the applicant were to match that, they would be eligible for county historic preservation tax credits.
Right.
So understanding the material would also be something to help guide that decision where there are financial incentives
see.
that are potentially available to them for doing that.
Okay, I was just looking at the photos. It's hard to tell, but it looks like the face of the trim is kind of coplanar with the face of the asbestos,
Yes, it's an incredibly flat profile.
which would imply that there's siding under there
Yes.
and that they put the asbestos
Yep.
over the top. Okay, so it's kind of a process to figure out whether they're going to restore what's underneath versus. So if it turns out that it's not in good shape, some of it is and some of it isn't, and the option is to restore, replace all that's rotten, keep the good stuff and replace the rotten stuff to match, or would they be required to take off all the old siding to put up the new siding?
Well, some of that's what they propose to do at the hop. I mean,
Okay.
it's dependent on that. I mean, if what is revealed is in decent condition, the typical requirement is that they repair what they can, and if it's deteriorated beyond repair, then it's replaced in kind and matching. So, there would be a historical basis for identifying the siding that's selected. But again, yes, you don't know what the condition of all of the siding is, what all of the historic siding is until all of the non-historic siding has been removed.
Right.
But it's common for the HPC to require repair in kind, or repair, or if deteriorated, replace in kind. That would be a standard requirement as a HOP for the treatment of siding.
Okay, and that's for the siding that's underneath the asbestos, or does that also apply to the asbestos?
Well, we know the asbestos is a non-historic siding, so
Right.
the applicant is proposing to remove it.
Okay,
So under all of the guidelines, they should be allowed to do that.
yes,
And then the question is, well, there are a couple of questions. The first question is, what's underneath?
yes,
And the answer is, we don't know yet.
right.
And, question, I guess, 2B would be, well, what's the appropriate thing to put back? What new siding is acceptable if the historic is not completely salvageable?
Well, like 2A would be if so if the siding is salvageable, that's not a question. If the siding is somewhat salvageable, then that would probably be a no-brainer that they could replace in kind, leave what's good. But if a lot of it is, my question is, if it's in bad shape, if they pull off the asbestos and it's in bad shape, which probably won't be because asbestos is pretty good at protecting this stuff, but would they be required to remove, if some of it is just, say the majority of it is not in good shape, rather than put new siding up in the same condition where you're going to have this very flat profile and the whole bit, would they be required to take it off, or is that beyond our purview? Take off the old stuff before they put up the new stuff?
Well, so I think,
Or is this just going down too far down the road?
so you are certainly down the rabbit hole. So we would know what was underneath.
Yeah.
And so if they were proposing if they came across that and that would change what the HOP approval was for, theoretically, they could then supply a HOP revision to us, but we would have a historical basis for identifying the historic siding, and it would be a restoration, which is something that could be approved at the staff level.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I think that answered my question, thanks.
Are there any more questions for staff? No. Okay, we're going to move on to the applicants. Please, if you'd like to come forward to the table. And this is Ms. Curry-Rude, the owner, and William Jolin, the architect? I am the son. The son? Oh, Justin Rude, okay. So it's Ms. Rude and her son, Mr. Rude. Ms. Curry-Rude. Okay, so if you'll sit down, make sure your mic is on, and identify yourselves for the record, your names, your address, and your relationship to the property, or to the case, please.
My name is Leah Curry-Rude, and I have lived at, I'm going to cry when I say it, but I've lived at 5 Montgomery for 48 years. And my husband and I moved there when Justin was 3. And so he's lived there for a long time. And when his father passed, he and his family have moved back in. So it's going to continue in the family. So we're very concerned that we do everything right.
And my name is Justin Rude. I am the son and helping with the process.
Thank you very much. Would you like to make a presentation, speak to us about anything, or we will just ask you questions?
Just very briefly, I think we'd both like to thank you all for your service. Paying this close attention to details this late at night is hard for anybody, and it takes a lot. And I wanted to especially speak to Mr. Bruckert. And Mr. Bruckert, is that correct? The research that you've done on the house, you've found stuff just going through these notes that go beyond and told us things that we didn't know. And we've been there for almost 50 years. So anyway, it's very impressive work. Yes, so we're happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for the applicants?
I have a question.
Commissioner Pelletier.
I know you don't want to hear from me again, but did you guys put the asbestos siding on, or did you buy it with it?
It was on there.
It was there.
Yeah.
And what year did you move in?
77.
77, okay.
76, 77, yeah.
Okay, that's all. I
And-
know I'm obsessed with this siding, only because
No,
I
trust
just
me,
did
we are
this.
too.
I
Oh,
just
no.
did it myself.
Is that right?
And it's quite the process to get it off, and it's quite a relief to get it off. So I would highly encourage that you do it. I just was,
We have avoided it the whole time that we've lived there. My father passed couple years ago, and when we started contemplating becoming an intergenerational household, and the work that it would take, we realized this might be the moment in time for it to go. So we're very excited.
yeah, that's great, thanks.
A friend who was an architect who came and looked at it, and he was also a contractor, and he is convinced that, or was convinced at that time, that there is good siding underneath it. I'm not of that feeling. I'm not going to get my homes all built up.
Well, I think there is too. But in the case of my house, not all of it was in good shape. And I had already decided to put up hardy planks, so I had it all taken off because I don't live in a historic district. But it was amazing, how, like the stuff that was in good shape, it was in bad shape, and that's why they covered it up. So it was in bad shape before they covered it with the asbestos. But the asbestos shingles do an awesome job of preserving the wood that's underneath. So you might have something really great under there, and they might have put it on for insulation purposes or
Right.
whatever. So it's very exciting to pull it off. So anyway.
Commissioner Doman?
This is Commissioner Dolman. Now, this is kind of a curiosity question, but the existing plan that I see in front of me shows the second floor was an apartment? Is that correct?
There-
Half of it.
So, yeah, the house before, when my parents bought the house in 1977, the house internally had been reconfigured and it had, I think, 4 legal apartments and 2 illegal apartments. There were 22 people living there at the time, so the story goes. So I think a lot of these changes came with those configurations. We've maintained that apartment for the whole time we've been there up until now.
Okay. So it looks like in the proposed drawings, this second floor apartment will be done away with. Is that
Already
what I
has been.
view here, right?
That's correct. It would no longer meet the requirements of a rental unit, I don't believe.
And on the one of the I'm trying to look at it. One of the photographs shows is that like a elevator chairlift that's on the side of the house?
That was for my father. Yeah, he was unable to walk for the last part of his life.
Do you have intentions to make this more ADA compliant throughout on your?
We're getting rid of it.
We're removing that.
You're removing it.
And restoring the porch. The interior of the house, particularly the ground floor, will be, we are hoping to make much more accessible. It's an old house that's already been chopped up once, and so it's got teeny tiny hallways, and my father had a prolonged illness before he passed, and it was very, very difficult to manage, given the interior of the house.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
I have a question.
Commissioner Nasser?
My question is about the skylights. I see that the room has already 2 windows. Is there a reason you want to add those skylights?
The question was about the skylights. I had a question about the skylights for you all and for staff as well. That portion of the house faces north, and it's relatively shaded, so those front windows don't really bring in a whole lot of light, and that was our architect's way of trying to figure out how to make that less of a small, dark room up there.
Thank you.
It wasn't, we appreciated staff's feedback on that particular point. I don't know if there is a time for homeowner questions. Is that now? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't mean to.
You can talk about anything you want, including questions.
If there were any we are novices to the world of skylights, although we do, of course, love natural light. And if there were thoughts or recommendations on how to make those a lower profile or anything that would make it more acceptable, we would definitely be interested in hearing about that.
I think you've got enough people on the HPC who can definitely give you an opinion, and actually be learned opinions too, by the way. If there are no more questions, we can begin our discussion about this. Would somebody like to go first with your, Commissioner Haynes?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I appreciate that you've lived in this house for over 40 years and wish to continue to make it livable for your family and keep it in the family. So I applaud that. With regard to the staff's question of the addition being coplanar with the existing house, I think that is fine. I think the offsets that are there currently allow one to understand the historic portion of the house, and I think in this case that a coplanar wall situation is fine. With regard to the dormers, I understand the need to want to use the space on that attic level. I feel they're a little bit large to the relative massing of the rest of the house, or particularly the cross gable. I noticed that you used a shallower pitch for the dormer, and I might suggest that you keep the pitch of the cross gable, which will help sort of break down the dormer massing, and I think it'd be a better proportion. I don't mind the double windows in the dormer, but I think if they were single windows, again, it would be more in keeping with the single windows of the main house gables.
And Jeff, if I could just interrupt you real quickly, Justin,
Sure.
I see you writing furiously. I will provide you with synthesized feedback from the commission, so you can continue to take notes furiously, but you can also rely on me later.
To get the good notes, that's the great, thank you, Dan.
Very good. So I would like to see a single window in the dormers as opposed to pairs. But in general, I'm okay with the dormers if we could sort of bring the massing down a little bit, and I think that could be achieved through the roof pitch matching the existing cross gable. I support the bay window. I think that's an appropriate element for the style of the house. With regard to the window that you're removing, I understand it's in a closet. I'm wondering if the HPC could accept if we could do that as a blind window, meaning on the outside you keep the window, but on the inside you drywall over it so that you can get the closet space that you're trying to achieve. Although it would be nice to have some natural light in the closet as well. But I do think it provides balance on that elevation. That's part of the character of the house. So I would consider that. With regard to the siding we talked about, and I think I'd like to know what is there. You know, once you do your investigation, we can circle back on the siding. So I'm going to skip over that. The skylights, I take a little bit different approach. I think the such a tall house, I don't think skylights on the front would really negatively impact the character of the house or the aesthetics of the house, especially if they're low profiled. Skylights, you have a fairly steep roof there. I don't think it'd be a problem to use low profile skylights. So I would support skylights on the front of the house. So overall, I support the project. I like the wraparound porch features. I'm assuming the overhangs dimensions of the overhangs you're going to, that's existing, you're going to do on the addition, is that correct?
The intention is to match as close as possible the original details.
Okay, great. One thing I did notice, on the front elevation, the front gable has a single window, but in the proposed it has a double. Is that correct? Did I read that right? That, I think I would not support that aspect. I would prefer to keep it a single window. I'll give you the skylights, and you give me the single window in the front there, and we'll call it even. But otherwise, I generally would support the project based on my comments.
Commissioner Doman?
This is Commissioner Doman. Commissioner Haynes touched on everything that I was going to say. So I agree with just about everything he said, particularly the front of the house with the proposed has double windows on the front and existing is one window on the front. I think that's an important thing to keep. And as far as the skylights, I'm all in favor of allowing the skylights. I did you're on Montgomery Avenue, and the staff has a solar collector walk around in the neighborhood. So I did walk past your house because there's several houses on Montgomery Avenue that have solar panels on their roofs. And I can't see how the solar panels would be any more unattractive than one little skylight on yours. And plus yours is up pretty high and it's almost invisible anyway. And maybe you might want to put solar collectors on your house sometime too. But it's a nice neighborhood, a lot of people with solar collectors on their roofs, skylights no problem. And yeah, I agree with the discussion about siding. I think this remains to be seen when you take your asbestos siding off, and I think you have the right approach. You know what to do, and I think it'll be a good project. So I support this, and I support staff's recommendations, basically. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'll finish up then. I agree with everything Commissioner Haynes said. Really, I would suggest you research a low-profile skylight because they are out there, and as tall as your house is, it won't be as visible. So keep that in mind because it is I understand. Is it going to be your office up there, or some who's?
My wife's not here.
Oh.
So don't let me speak out of turn, please.
Oh, it's going to be yours until she says no.
Well, we haven't, there's some questions you leave till the end. We haven't determined
There's a
who gets what
negotiation
room
to be had,
exactly.
it sounds like.
This will be fun when you come back on that one. Okay.
Can I say one more?
Sure.
The house has, the drawings, the proposed drawing and the existing drawing do not show the fine little wood sculptures that up at in the top of your gable. You have some, in all of the gables at the top level, you have some very attractive little details been added to it. And obviously, I hope you're going to keep all that.
Oh, thank you. None of those were original. Those are ornamentation.
They're not original.
That my mom added relatively recently. But yeah,
well,
no,
they do
thank
look
you.
nice on the house.
Well, in
30 years ago.
in the span of the house, yes.
Thank you.
Well, I think I can speak for everybody that we support what you're going to do. It's a very fine addition for the best of reasons. We get a lot of houses that come through here where they enlarge their houses very much, usually for the sake of a master suite, and you're doing it for multi-generational family, cohabitation, and I think that's a wonderful idea. And wish I had a house this big. This would be great. But thank you. Dan will give you all of our comments, not that there were that many, and we hope to see you back very soon with a hop.
Thank you very much. May I ask one question of the board?
Sir.
There was still some discussion about the very back of the house, the porch. It's not uncommon for other houses of this, built in this period to then later have a screened-in, like a sleeping porch on the second floor. We have that on some of the other houses in the neighborhood, and so we were debating whether or not we should modify the idea on the second floor to have, to screen that in some way. Obviously, you couldn't just add screening. more changes need to happen. Is that something that you all would be amenable to, or would you need to see it?
You would have to come forward as a preliminary would be great. The kind of sad thing about sleeping porches is that people close them in completely, and they just become this room,
Just a room,
this
yeah.
kind of boxy thing, a carbuncle off the house, and nobody ever takes advantage of sleeping on a porch, a screened-in porch anymore. So, but come back. We'll be happy to give you our opinions, like we give opinions on everything else. But thank you very much for coming forward. Okay, moving on, we have item number 3, which is meeting minutes, February 22nd, 2023. Has anybody read the minutes this time? Oops. Commissioner Doman, did you read them?
Yes, I did.
Oh, good.
This is Commissioner Doman, and I move that we approve the draft meeting minutes from what day?
February 22nd.
February 22nd, as put forth by staff.
Do I hear a second?
Commissioner Haynes, I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. And do we have any commission items?
Madam Chair, there was some discussion during the work session about potentially sending a letter to the county executive regarding process and procedure, or whatever the HPC may wish to send. You just need to come to some consensus in open session that the commission is authorizing the chair, the vice chair to send a letter, and then you guys can work on the draft and staff can transmit that on your behalf.
I would suggest we view this not for a specific case at hand, but to view this in the longer range of the fixing a procedure that goes off the rail pretty spectacularly. And if it would be nice to get the planning board running as smoothly as our HPC runs. Does anybody have an opinion on this?
Are we going to offer suggestions on what they can do? Or I feel like it needs to be a constructive document, right? Instead of just citing certain things that happened. Like, are we going to have any sort of constructive suggestions for them? Or do we have any? I don't know if we have any.
Well, we're going to get to read a draft before we
Well,
send it.
you'd get to read a draft.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, we can do this two ways, okay? If you want to address the case at hand, then we can address that in the letter. We can also just send a letter to the county executive, because he is the one who approves planning board members. And so in that regards, he does have an interest in opinions. And we can just completely remove it from the case at hand and just stick to those procedures that we feel are not conducive to the process when it relates to preservation or to our work and our staff's work, and either just point out the problems that we view are continuing now with a new board and would like to see them addressed so that it is a more fair and organized process. Or we can offer suggestions, at which you could send via email to Ms. Vallow your suggestions, and she could then forward them to Chair Sutton and myself.
I had one other question. Is it worthwhile to do it now, or are we waiting for the board to kind of land in a more permanent position? Because it sounds like it's sort of, things are sort of up in the air with the board at the moment.
So we have 3 new planning board members that were just appointed that will be joining us
Permanent.
tomorrow.
I mean,
Permanent.
or 3.
Yes,
yeah,
three
for their
new
term.
permanent members.
Okay.
And the current chair, Jeff Zions, and Commissioner Panero will be with us until June. And then in July, presumably, we will have 2 newer so in July, we will have all 5 permanent members appointed.
I have a question. The county executive has weighed in on his opinion on the 3 that have been approved?
My understanding of how this process goes is that the planning board members are different, for example, than members of the HPC. Those go through the county executive's office, who recommends the appointment, and then the council affirms them. The planning board is appointed by the council. The county executive, I believe, has veto authority, at least over the chair, if not over every planning board member. But I'm not 100% certain about the law. But the people apply for the positions, then are interviewed by the council, who take a vote on the appointments. And then I'm not sure in the process at which point the county executive may be able to exercise the veto authority that he may have.
I guess my perspective on this is, as having given the most recent testimony, is that there was a lot of hope that the new temporary planning board would work better than the previous one had. And it is apparent to me that the personalities involved, that the structure of the process is not directing the individual planning board members towards sticking to the staff report, the criteria, and the regulations and the ordinance. And is there, I think there should be some effort made to keep that path, or keep to the path and not go wandering around. And I don't know what it is, and maybe Chair Sutton has some better ideas, but at least bring it to the attention of the county executive that waiting for the next planning board to be better, it may not be better. I mean, we have no, it's new people, and they've met the criteria, or they've applied and they've been approved by the council, and there's, political aspects to it, so.
Well, okay, so one other question. I know this past meeting that we were discussing during the preliminary meeting here was, kind of went off the rails. Does that happen a lot? Or are we, I guess the question is, are we addressing that meeting, or are we addressing the process in general? I haven't really seen any other meetings of the council or the planning board, so I don't know, does this happen all the time?
I could only speak to one prior meeting that I was on the commission, HPC 4 at the time, and was witness to, which was in many ways very similar to the same thing. There wasn't a cartoon character involved, but the
Precast. Was the Precast Institute?
Yes, it was the Precast Institute in 2019. I guess we could ask staff, have you brought forward a nomination in your terms that has not been approved in a manner that was not the reason for denial or non-support of the staff report was based on things other than the criteria and the staff report?
So I'm going to give you a general answer.
Yes, please, that would be fine.
With the preface that your staff serve two masters in this. We are the staff to the HPC, and we are the staff to the planning board. So we are responsible for supporting both of our boards and commissions with our expertise and recommendations for defensible decisions. Now, in the presentation that Mr. Lieberts gave and that I spoke to, we were clear with the planning board that the master plan for historic preservation does allow the planning, well, it establishes for the planning board that the criteria to be used for a designation are the same as the HPC in 24A3. And other public interests, other public considerations, which typically have meant other master planning considerations, other public benefits that are called out in, area-specific master plans or other planning-based policies, that those are typically the other public interests that the board is permitted to weigh. Now, I'll also say in, reading through the administrative record of this program, which is over 40 years old at this point, 45 years old, I have come across many letters from many previous HPC chairs to the county council and to the planning board saying, these are the regulations, these are the criteria. Why didn't you, expressing dismay or saying, this is what you should properly consider, not this, that, or the other thing, many, many times before. My impression is that this is an area of law, an area of policy that many people are just not professionally familiar with it, even if you do land use, even if you do architecture for a living, and that it takes a lot of repetition to kind of get the hang of it, and there are always new people coming through on the boards and the commissions and at the council. So I wouldn't characterize any one hearing any particular way, only that this is repetition on a theme, a long theme.
So maybe we're due for another, maybe we're due for another reminder to the board of what the criteria are. I mean, if this is as a helpful.
It is definitely part of the role of the staff. I'm sorry, Commissioner Nasser, did I interrupt?
I was just going to ask a question. As a new commissioner, I actually had a training session with you that you emphasize on, like many, many times, that we should put emotions aside, we should put our personal beliefs, our whatever agenda we have in our minds aside and follow the guidelines. I mean, of course, we listen to owners, we listen to applicants. That's why we have these hearings, or else we could just review their, applications and that will be it. But I keep on reminding myself that I need to, even if I personally don't agree with something, I should keep in mind that we are following these rules, we are following these guidelines, and based on those, make decisions. So I assume same thing applies to the planning board and the planning members, but apparently everything can just be emotional or whatever I like is, it was just very unacceptable to me. It was just very unprofessional, I think. It was just, that's my opinion.
I think to your point and to Commissioner Pelletier's question, which I think is kind of a rhetorical question, but that is a lot of my job and the job of the Historic Preservation Commission as well, this continued education for, not just the property owners, as stewards of their properties, but the other decision makers that, that you come into contact with in your orbit of doing this work. And I do that internally with the new planning board. I had trainings with some that have just cycled off, the new board members have trainings on all areas of, planning disciplines within the department. And also for, our new county council members. We have new council members. The county executive is very much an old hand at the city of Tacoma Park and a lot to do with historic preservation. However, in his role, he has different, responsibilities, and he has a different relationship, most importantly, with the Historic Preservation Commission than he did as a council member. So it is absolutely appropriate for you in your role to reach out to the executive or those that are on your level, not my level as the staff, but you have a different relationship with them. And yes, keep educating them and raising any concerns you have about process, procedures, perceptions, anything you feel is appropriate.
I would say, remind everybody here that we all asked to be on this commission. We are all volunteers, and we spend a great deal of time doing what we do. We take it seriously, we take it professionally, and we try to, I think we do a good job of keeping a good humor about it for most cases, and we are always helpful and understanding of the applicants who come forward, even when we don't necessarily agree with them. But I do think it is worth our time to reach out to the county executive and remind him that we take our job seriously, and we would like the others that come, that review the staff spends a great deal of time and effort preparing these reports, and we take it very seriously when it comes before us and before we send it along. And we would like to make sure that the planning board and the council take the staff report and our recommendations with the utmost seriousness, based on our expertise and our experience, and the staff's definite experience and expertise, and take it in a professional manner and give it the respect it is due and the attention that it's due. And if you all are willing, Chair Sutton will lead this off. I will, thank God, yes, delegating it to him, with my assistance and, of course, with the good and wise assistance of Ms. Ballo. So if all are in favor of a letter being sent to the county executive, with those conditions, do I hear an aye?
Aye.
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 There we go. We just did the process again. Okay. 4B, staff items. Are there any staff items tonight?
No, Madam Chair, there are no staff items tonight.
Could I ask a question?
Certainly.
At the last meeting, Dan, you gave us a handout for consideration of possible changes that we could.
So they were due by the 22nd, right? I think that's what I wrote on mine.
22nd of,
Next meeting.
well, I got February 22nd.
No.
Okay, so this isn't,
I mean, if you've got them, I'll take them.
well, I have some comments, but I'll wait till general discussion then, next meeting, I guess.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I have a question, because I don't remember. When are we doing our Tacoma Park Solar Walk?
Next week.
Next Saturday. Okay.
Whenever you all would like to offline decide that you would like to. Was it the 8th?
Yeah.
Okay, so March 18th.
March 18th, but next.
Okay,
So
March 18th.
informally gather amongst your,
Leave you out of it.
yep.
I do have a question about Winnie's mapping project.
Yeah.
Does it only work on apples?
Oh.
No, it will work on something else?
I already did the walk around.
Yeah. Did you
And
do it
I
on
have an Android phone.
Yes, okay.
And it worked perfectly.
Okay.
It's laid out very conveniently. 5, 6 homes are on Montgomery Avenue, so you go down there. And I also enjoyed the fact that it was a beautiful day and the homeowners were out, and I got to talk to, like, how do you like your solar collectors, you know? So I got to see them and talk to the people a little bit about it. One homeowner on Pine, I believe, their complaint was that the raccoons moved in underneath the collectors, so that the collectors were about 6 inches above the roof. And she said they tried their best, they put netting up around it and everything, and those doggone raccoons just tore it apart and they made a nest up there, and she could hear them at nighttime. So that may be the only drawback, but you know, most people say, yeah, it's really good. And apparently there's a incentive for selling the electricity back to the grid. But if you sell to the district, it's a lot more to your advantage than to selling to the state of Maryland, which I didn't know about, but there's a big difference in that.
That is an issue that has come up in,
And it's only
in
Tacoma
discussion.
Park, apparently.
Well, because they're the closest to the district.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I'm not sure we've gotten, no, Tacoma Park puts up the most solar cells.
Yes.
And they're close to the district.
Yes.
And that is an issue that's out there. We've not specifically addressed it. I know we've talked about it, but.
We have talked about it.
Yeah.
And because because this had come up a couple times, and like Dan can jump in and rescue me with this, but we have looked at this a couple times because sometimes we will get requests for 40 or 50 solar panels or something on the house. In fact, we're dealing with a similar case now, and the question from staff is, what is necessary to meet the energy needs of your property, right? That's the ask. And then asking people to parse that out so that the commission can consider if there's any adverse visual effect. You know, what is the extra that people are adding extra solar panels purely for the reason to sell the energy back to the district, which, you know, that's really neither here nor there, but we want people to state definitively what do they need for their property. We'll take that as a baseline. So we have had that come up.
Mhm. And if that's it, then I call for adjournment.
I second it.